What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Melch here, back with another. Wait, this isn't a Minecraft video. It's an economics video, actually. Unfortunately, I was gone for quite some time because I was busy with schoolwork, of course. And I'll be posting more during the summer if I have time because I have big projects. But this video is gonna be all about money and all about Canada and how its agreements affected its economy throughout modern history, like the past 50 years or so. But of course, we gotta start off with some background information. 10,000 years ago, indigenous people of all of America were no strangers to how economics worked. So the indigenous, they had many ports that were guarded by strong armies. Their trades and economy received like a solid amount of public funding. Their transportation was good. It was efficient at that time. And they had one language that recorded all the transactions, and pretty much everyone across the Americas who dealt with trade and economy knew it and understood it. The language is Chinook, of course. But once the Europeans arrived, with the arrival of John John Cabot, and excuse me for my language again, the arrival of John Cabot and Samuel de Champlain, the Europeans started trading weapons and tools that the indigenous have never seen before for beaver fur, as beaver fur was suddenly receiving high demand in Europe because beaver fur could be used to make hats, could be used to make bags and jackets. This also led to the Europeans trading weapons for alliances, such as the British trading weapons to the Iroquois for strong bonds and partnership between the two nations. But the French, however, they traded weapons to the Hurons for assimilation instead of anything in return. They just asked, you must convert to Christianity if you want weapons and if you want to survive against the British and the Iroquois. And most of the Hurons didn't, so they just died off. They also died off because the French were importing non traditional goods into Canada, which the Hurons have never interacted with. As the forests were being cleared and houses were being built and factories were being built, products such as wheat, timber, and potash were starting to move more frequently through Ontario and the land around Ontario. During this time, Confederation which was an important part of the economics of Canada. So Confederation happened when, of course, the four colonies of Canada, Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, joined together and turned into the new country of Canada, which had a stronger economy as a whole rather than four separate colonies, each handling their own sector by themselves. Nova Scotia was the fishing and harbor section. Ontario was the more richer and more populous colony. Quebec had the north waters, of course, and they also had the St. Lawrence River, which was really, really great for farming. And New Brunswick, well, guess what? New Brunswick was loyalist. So they built a railway from Nova Scotia all the way to Ontario, and they soon got British Columbia to join, and that made the railroad a more prioritized project instead of just leaving it to end at Ontario. The railroad helped with Canada's economy because it allowed for many goods to be moved throughout Canada nationwide, and it improved transportation overall in Canada. During Confederation, Canada imposed tariffs on the US so that more Canadians within Canada could buy more Canadian goods, so that it improved funding for the Great Pacific Railway, and it helped Canada in general. And during the war, everything changed, since Canada then became a safe port for ships to go from Halifax to to Britain or to Europe, so that they could export supplies, weapons, um, of course, soldiers and weapons. Because who doesn't need a weapon? Who doesn't need a weapon in World War One? Then after World War One, Canada decided to shift from a war economy to a peace economy, which meant they had to shut down many gun factories, or munitions factories in that case, which angered a lot of people in Winnipeg, and that caused them to riot. The closing of many munitions factories left many people unemployed, and since the war ended, even more people were coming into Canada without a job. Since what are they going to fight for? Since what are they going to fight for? Because the war ended. There's nothing to fight for anymore. There's nothing to fight for anymore. Canada also had to deal with income tax, which is still here today. That's kind of significant. And also, where did these soldiers or veterans, where are they supposed to go now? Since they have no more job, the munitions factories were shut down, which means people lost their jobs, of course, which kind of hurt the Canadian economy because people couldn't pay their taxes anymore. So, guess what the Canadian government did? They sent the people to working camps where they would just log forests and cut down trees. Because in Canada back then, you had to have a job or else you'd be legally arrested. Sounds crazy, right? The people who worked at these employment camps, essentially they just got fed up, and they had to hop on trains. They hopped on trains from Vic, uh, they hopped on trains from British Columbia and started the on to Ottawa trek, where they stopped at Saskatchewan to riot, of course. By the way, one officer got beat to death there, which is kind of crazy. And this is all to improve Canada's economy, since people wanted actual jobs and a real payment instead of having to live with these horrible conditions that they couldn't live with. The On to Ottawa trek was successful, of course, because it raised awareness to the government, and the government responded with the New Deal, or at least not yet. They just sent a bunch of money to provinces and said, here you go, do what you want, fix the economy, blah, 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 blah. And then following that was the 1929 stock market crash, which is probably famous since it's a stock market crash. Who wouldn't listen to it? Which literally just like said to the government, hey, Canada's economy is dead. Try to fix it now. So the United States, they made their New Deal, and guess what Canada did? They copied them, of course. So Canada made their New Deal, which improved the workplace for employees, gave them better wages. It revised the pension plan for the elderly, where the new maximum working age was 65 years old. It gave employment insurance, so if you're stuck between finding a job and not working, you're being given money by the government. It also implemented the progressive taxation, which means that tax is broken up into brackets, and the more you make, the more money you have to pay, essentially. So for the working class, like the very low working class, it's like 15%. And then as you go up, it's like 20, 25, and so on and so forth. It also helped farmers. It gave the ability to create the wheat board, and make sure that the wheat prices were regulated. That did help quite. It did help a bit, but it wasn't enough because World War II started, and so World War II, pew pew pew, Normandy, D-Day, Juno Beach, you know, liberation of the lowlands, and the Allies won again. So afterwards, Canada and the US were becoming more independent of Britain's nonsense and whatever they were doing over there in Europe. So the US and Canada both signed like a treaty between each other to regulate economics and review any unnecessary economic trade agreements. That revision basically made the economy between Canada, USA, and Britain more understandable and clear, and it made a freer trade market and a more stable economy between all three countries. Canada and the US also agreed between each other to end all trade, all tariffs, and anything implied on fox furs and fox skins. This agreement was signed because the US and Canada saw that Europe was producing way too many fox furs, which messed up the economy here in North America, and because the world was under the influence of World War II. Although Canada's market today is very messy and prices are going up and wages are staying where they are, Canada has to make changes that align with the rest of the world because, of course, why would you be out of place and not make as much money as the rest of the world? Because things such as defense and stuff, they cost a lot, and materials cost a lot, which means the country has to make more money in return so that they can buy these expensive things to build, like expensive defense. They can build more infrastructure, and so that they can continue exporting products between Canada, the United States, and the rest of the world. And those exported products include automobiles, textiles, firearms, metal, timber, and peanut butter. Yeah. What? That's all for today's wild video, and see you in the next one. Bye.